All right, with another Workflow Wednesday. And today, one of the things I want to talk about is what the heck is a major incident? Now, if you're in IT, you can probably just check out because you've lived this, you understand it completely. But ServiceNow expands the enterprise. And so, as many people across the enterprise start looking for ways to improve the way of work, improve efficiencies, and look for ways to work together, there's terms that come from different parts of the organization that we're going to hear. Major incident is one that you might have heard, and maybe you hear it from natural disasters or other things. But within the world of work, particularly within the world of IT, an MI, a major incident, is a topic that we'll often hear talked about a fair amount. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I wanted to use the fact that I have a personal story I get to share that with and explain it with plumbing. And so let's walk into that. First, major incidents are when there is a service you're providing that goes down. It's no longer accessible and it's stopping work. And it grows in scale as that impact to your business, impact to your employees, impact to your customers grows. And so these are often called priority one. It's stop everything. Let's figure out how to fix this. And so my story begins, of course, in the middle of the night. Because major incidents never happen in the middle of the day. Well, they do, but the stories that you hear and you experience are often in the off hours. So for me and for my wife, it started at about 4:15, 4:20 in the morning. We got a call from our daughter who lives maybe an hour away from us, panicked. She had to go and start work. She had to be there to open up, so she had to leave. But as she's leaving, she looks up to see her ceiling starting to collapse. It's a major incident. So she's calling. She's saying, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. There's something going on the ceiling. There's something going on in the house. What do I do? What do I do? I've got to get to work and open this up. And I'm onboarding into ServiceNow. I've been here a little over 2.5 months. And in that time, there's lots of training. I had a mandatory training starting at 10. So this is, there's some time. There's, less than 6 hours, but there's some time. And so we started thinking, well, what do we do? Do we call someone? Who do we call? Who do we get involved? And so really kind of stepping back as we wake up, what can we do? So the major incident is there's something going on, very likely water, because what causes a ceiling to collapse, just like you would in the work world. What's down? This application is down. What could that possibly be? Which teams need to be involved? And so that's kind of the first step, is truly is something that impact, is there something wrong? Is there an incident? And is it causing impact enough that it should be considered a priority one? Stop everything else. Get up at 4:20 in the morning and drive and go and do this to be able to come back in time for a class. It's the same type of planning when we think about major incidents. How important is it for us to address this? In this case, P1. The next step when you think about a major incident is trying to assemble a team. And there's two different teams that I think are important that we see in ServiceNow when you look at how major incidents are handled in the platform and enabled in the platform. It's those that are communicated to and need to be involved in the communication chain, and those that are involved in looking at it, resolving it, and restoring service. Restoring service is key. One of the things that you find, and you'll hear it in this story too, is the purpose of the major incident is to, as quickly as possible, find out how you restore service in some manner. You might not fix the root cause. You might find a workaround. You might find some other way to do it, but things will not be restored to the way they were before or the way that you'd really envisioned them to be done in the future. And the same is true in this story. And so I get up, I get dressed. The communication channel for us is my wife and my daughter. And so we start figuring out, here's what I'm going to do. And make a plan, make a timeline of when are we going to hear the next update. Who's going to be involved in resolving it? Who's going to be involved in communications and communication channels? And what is the frequency of that communication? with a major incident, that's crucial, particularly when you've got customers and many people involved. We want a very accurate schedule of when there's going to be updates. For this, I need about an hour and a half, hour and 20. I need coffee. And so I assembled my tool, got dressed, assembled my tools, figured out what I'm going to need, and got on my way. And yes, I did stop for coffee because that early in the morning, I had to have some. And so as I went there, I'm thinking through the layout of her house. I'm thinking through what could cause this. And that's just like your implementation teams or your major incident teams, response teams are going to be doing. As soon as they hear about it, as they're groggy, as they're getting involved and they're getting their caffeine and they're getting involved in the systems, they're going to be thinking about, all right, what could take that service down? Where do we need to look? Has there been any changes that have been done lately? For my daughter, this is a fairly new house. She moved in a couple weeks prior. And so we don't know a lot of what we don't know. And we had no home inspection done, but that's a whole nother story that I don't want to get into. But I'm not a fan of paying home inspectors. They don't find stuff. Anyway, with major incidents, you want that team thinking about where should they be inspecting? Where should they be looking? Inside of ServiceNow, if you have the configuration management database, the database that stores all of the things that you care about to do your business, you put it under change control so you can track it and monitor it. That's important. But what we've seen is users have understood that the relationships between all of these things matter. That's CI, configuration item to CI relationship. This uses this, which depends on this. And that tree of relationship helps us understand what could impact things. As that rolls up into what we call the Common Services Data Model, CSDM, we've got to love acronyms, CMDB, CSDM. As that rolls up, we can see there's different services. How might that play out in my daughter's house? It's really, the service is she has a functioning master bath. In that master bath, there's multiple things inside that region. There's a ability to go to the bathroom. There's a shower. There's a sink. And all of those have water, both water going in and water going out. I'm an electrical engineer by training, and so one of the things I learned from my dad is the gazintas have to add up to the gazatas. Yeah, I know, not so technical, but it matters. And in plumbing, just like electricity, same type of concept applies. In those services, those configuration items, if you will, in my daughter's bathroom, have both source lines going in, valves, fittings, controls, faucets, and then they have fixtures that are collecting it. You know, the shower pan and the drain and the plumbing that goes underneath the shower, the sink and the P-trap underneath it and the plumbing that goes from that, as well as the toilet itself, both the tank and the bowl and the drain that goes underneath it that's embedded in the floor. Each of those in ServiceNow in our technical world would be configuration items with relationships to each other. As we think about that team, as the service goes down, one of the most important steps to look at is, how is your change management process being done? Do we have a track record of what was done when, and if this item here was updated, what would be dependent on it? Your teams are going to be thinking about that. What changes were done the day before? Did a team just deploy a new set of firewall rules? Did they just, replace a database, replace a server? Was there some change made? Because in general, problems don't show up without some change. So what was the change? For me, as I'm driving down the mountains, I live in Colorado, and so driving down the curvy mountain roads, enjoying that to kind of clear the mind, but also letting me think through, what do we know about the configuration items in the master bath that's right above where she described the ceiling as collapsing? Started thinking through where that could be. It looked like a recent remodel, and so it's possible that there were some plumbing issues behind the walls that we should look at. There's issues where possibly with the toilet or the sink, maybe there's something there, but I wasn't sure. And so the first thing I did when I got there was started looking at What are the sources? What's the impact? Why is the service down? For me, why is the ceiling coming down? Is it a flow of water? Is it just a collection of water? And in here, what I found was the source of water was very, very slow. So I started shutting water sources off. I didn't see anything moving. Wanted to check that first. Shut the water sources off. Then I started looking, just like your teams would do. What else is there? And along each of these steps, we need to send communication updates to the team that we decided should be involved in communications. For me, that's my wife and daughter, right? I made it to coffee. I made it to the house. I got in. I found where there's water and there's collapsing. I think I know where to look next. And what I found I had to do is I had to cause some damage. I had to get up on a stool, because that was quicker than getting the ladder, and cut back the ceiling paint that was, hanging down like a balloon. I had to cut that out. Then I had to cut out a section of sheetrock to see where was this water coming from in the ceiling. As I cut it down, I found lots of things that were wet, but I couldn't tell exactly where it was. It looked like it was more from underneath the toilet than the shower or the sink. And so I was able to send an update. I think I found where it might be coming from. Just like in your major incident, as you start looking at the dependency tree, we've identified, well, it's not the shower, all the things that support the shower. It's not the source, it's not the drain, it's not the sink. That would be further over, that would have come down somewhere else. And it helps identify which teams, and sometimes that's pulling in a different group. Hey, it's not the server team, it's not the database team, or it's a network team. You can pull in different resources. In my scenario, it's still me, but it's a different focus. And so what I found from cutting that sheetrock out is it looked like it was coming from the toilet. Couldn't tell if it was the source of the drain side. I'm always suspicious of the source side because that's where there's pressure. And so I went up and looked. And what I found as I looked very closely is they're plastic fittings. I am an old guy. I prefer sweated copper and soldering those together because I think that's an art form and I enjoy doing it well. I understand the value of PEX and being able to do the plastic fittings and plastic valves just because of cost. But as I looked up there, one of the things I saw and one of the things that made me frustrated with our home inspector that we paid is we had a plastic fitting that came up through the floor with a shutoff valve. And then on top of it is the attachment to the hose that goes up to the tank of the toilet. And it was very clear that that valve was at an angle. Plastic threads don't do well if they're misthreaded. And so what happened was it looked like as we came in, that angle, as we started using that toilet, there was a very slow drip. That misthreaded valve was causing this slow drip. And so over the 2 weeks of being in the house, it's just drip a little bit at a time. So did anything change the night before that caused her ceiling to collapse? No. It was probably a problem that had been started, 2 weeks prior, or even before that. There was just this very slow drip with water collecting. Knowing that, and thankfully there's a Home Depot very nearby, I measured the pieces, understood what I had to get to replace the valve, and communicated that out with my team, with my wife and my daughter. I found the problem. I think I have time. I can go to the store. I know which pieces I need to get. I'm going to get it. Just like major incident inside of ServiceNow, you'll have that communication channel. You'll meet with the team, particularly as you start having a broader team. You'll have status meetings to check. Some organizations keep a bridge open constantly so you can communicate back and forth. Inside of ServiceNow, you can chat on the MI record so you can keep the team informed, both as work notes, internal, as customer comments, external facing to those that need to see in the communication chain. as updates are made, you can shape your response and what's next for your response team. And you can also shape expectations of when do we think we'll be able to restore service? When do we think we'd be able to cause the stop of the problem? Because sometimes there's that. Sometimes there's, not only a service is down, but there's detrimental things happening. In my case, there was water leaking causing damage. First was able to stop that. Yes. In your major incident, is there something going wrong? Is there data being corrupted? Is there something else being damaged? Can you stop that? Then after that, it's how to restore service. And for me, it meant I stopped it. I needed to disassemble. I needed a new hose because I didn't trust the threads within that. And I also needed a new valve, and I needed a fitting for the plastic plumbing coming out of the ground. Equipped with that, I ran to Home Depot, found the shark bite. We all use shark bites, right? Any of those DIY plumbers? They work great if you get them on a nice clean cut pipe. And so I was able to come back, and of course, was able to get the new valve on, put it in place, reapplied water pressure, with the valve closed, and could see that there was no current leak. So I wiped it all up, made sure it was very dry so I could monitor it, and then started to put the hose on that I got from Home Depot, only to realize that I thought I got the right part, but it was put in the wrong slot. When we're under pressure, often we'll try and pick things quickly. It's one where this caught me. I didn't double check. I've known this before. You have to verify everything you get from those large stores. But Home Depot, they had several. I was looking for the right length and the right fittings, and the label was right, and I grabbed one, but it was the wrong size fitting on one end. So I need to make another trip back. I'm looking at my watch, looking at my drive time up to my class. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Had to jump on and tell my teacher in my class, again, who's on the communication channel that needs to know. I needed to update, my manager and the teacher in the class. Hey, I think I'm gonna be back, but I may be a few minutes late, working on an emergency. Went to Home Depot, returned the missing part, found the right part, came back, put it in place, connected it to the tank of the toilet, and was able to apply water pressure to it, verify that there's no leaks, then did, a rough cleanup, and was able to actually see my daughter. She came home and was able to talk through what I had found and talk through where we should watch. We believe we've restored service, but there's some things we need to monitor. In a major incident, you might find that same thing, that as you restore service, you find some way, hey, we've got this other server, another copy of the database. We can move this service here, connect it like this, use a different load balancer, whatever it might be in technical terms. Your team is sharp, and they'll find some way to restore service. But as they do it, there's going to be some things we need to watch. This server might not have as much memory, might not have as much CPU power, whatever it might be, that we need to track usage. And if usage starts to get too high, we're going to have to step in and preempt it some other way. In my case, that was, I think I've solved this problem. Here's how you shut it off here. Here's how you shut it off across the whole house. Here's what we need to watch for. So with that, I was able to get on the road, communicate to my wife and daughter, yep, I am leaving. I believe the major incident is resolved. There's existing problems left, right? I cut a hole in the ceiling. There's sheetrock missing. What we did there is similar to what you do in ServiceNow. There's some more work that needs to be done. In ServiceNow, we'd create a problem record, say there's some root cause we need to do. There's some repair that we need to do. And so we'd create a problem record and identify here's what has to happen. For us, it's a note. We need to find a handyman that can come out and put in a piece of sheetrock, because I just don't have time to be able to do that, to be able to repair the ceiling and restore that to final fit and finish. With a major incident, it might be the same way, that it's resolved, but you need a problem record to track out how do you resolve it, to restore service completely as it was before, to understand where that problem came from. Your team, as they resolve it, might even not understand the root cause. There's more analysis that needs to be done to track that down. And so in my case, we got that all restored, got it all set. The other thing we did is we made sure we brought a fan down to circulate air to dry that out. And knock on wood, that has been solved. But as you look at ServiceNow and you look at your environment, one of the things that we see in ServiceNow is ServiceNow does change the world of work. It provides workflows, ways that you can get teams to collaborate together, understand who's taking this next action, who needs to approve things, who needs to be communicated with, to be able to see what's happening, to be aware of progress. ServiceNow does that across the enterprise. It's not just for IT anymore. One of the products that I get to be involved in is a service called Impact. And Impact, for our customers that use it, assembles a team. We call it the Impact Squad. The Impact Squad is a team that's basically watching different things. They're watching the instance, as updates are being done, they're checking to see how that's progressed. Much like in the building world, it's kind of a building inspector. You might have some inspections on code. You might have someone come in and double check things. You might have a home inspector that would actually be aware if there's a misthreaded valve. I didn't. I'll find a different home inspector, likely me. But your team on the Impact Squad would have that perspective, that time to look and say, here's some things we're doing on the instance. Here's some things that are happening in the ecosystem. How's that going to impact your organization? And they can preemptively jump in. And what we're hearing from our customers is instead of things becoming a major incident with a call at 4:15 in the morning, the team is able to identify things early and stop them, get ahead of it and say, there could be some problems here. We see a misthreaded valve. There's some problems here. We see that, there's coding that's not quite following best practices. There's maybe some security issues in the way this integration is being done. There's some other interrelations. Maybe there's new capabilities on the platform that are going to impact some things you've done in the past. That Impact Squad can catch all of those things. Many of those things, right? I'm always leery anytime I say or hear the word all. We'd catch many. And one of the things we're finding is having that Impact Squad, having access to these, what we call impact accelerators, very concise engagements where we bring in our expert services team to respond and look at things. That could be a code analysis, could be an instance observation, could be some other things, looking at your CMDB or how CSDM is set up, or security. All of these tools end up helping us have a much clearer understanding of your organization and how things are running. In the scenario that I described from plumbing, it would be, I have good analysis. I understand where there's water flow, when there's not. Is there water flowing when I didn't expect it? What would cause that? Do I have analysis of which branch of the plumbing tree, if you will, that water is flowing when I didn't expect it to? Those are the types of things that we might be able to instrument inside of ServiceNow, where you're watching different KPIs and looking at server loads, looking at database loads, looking at other things, and having some early awareness that something's different and why. That could come from your event management system, could come your vulnerability systems. There's so many different things within your organization that can feed us information and data about how work should flow and help us understand how to quickly preempt that. With Impact, we help enable that. And so again, hope you enjoyed this Workflow Wednesday, that you have a better understanding of what a major incident is. And I hope you don't have a 4 a.m. call about plumbing with a ceiling collapsing underneath you. But just know that ServiceNow has processes in place to do some of that. If you'd like to talk about that more, hopefully I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. If we're not connected, do reach out. But I'm a services account executive with ServiceNow. I cover the Rockies, but I enjoy connecting with others. If I can help you or can connect you with someone else that can, do reach out. And I look forward to talking with you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.